have Dan Ferguson up here. And he's a partner and co-founder of Groove Jones. Also coming to the stage is Keith Curtin, VP of Zappar, Tracy Quitasol, Managing Director of OMD Worldwide, and John Buzzell, EVP of Technology and Experience at You Are Here Labs. And I am moderating this one. So
Thank you.
Thank you, panel. Everybody's here.
These are the brightest lights ever.
Yeah, you can't see. You can literally see
can't.
nothing. But I see lights and I see like outlines.
Bye, guys. Woo!
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so for our discussion today, basically this panel brings together some of the top marketing creative executives working on XR creative content for brands. Each of these panels have developed projects for the top companies in some of the biggest locations of in the world. So what I'm hoping is that I can have everybody on the panel introduce themselves. We also have some slides as well with some videos for people to be able to talk to. I don't know if let me see if it works yet, or maybe it needs to come up.
Did you bring one?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Why don't we start with the introductions first, and then we'll go from there. Go ahead.
Sure. Hey, I'm Dan Ferguson from Groove Jones. We're a creative technology group out of Dallas, Texas, working with brands, and then we also work with agencies.
Hi, I'm Tracy Quitasol. I'm with OMD. We work with a lot of brands across a full spectrum of industries, and our job at the agency is, we're a small innovation team. Our job is to peek around corners and figure out what's next, so our brands are out there testing and learning and then scaling.
Hey everybody, my name's John Buzzell and I'm with You Are Here Labs. We help agencies, brands, and companies learn about spatial computing, help them evaluate it to their particular needs, whether that be marketing or training, and then we help them scale it up.
Hi guys, my name is Keith Curtin. I'm with a company called Zappar. We are a mobile augmented reality company based in London with headquarters in London and also offices here in the US. We are a software company first, so we have a content authoring platform that we've developed so that brands, retailers, and agencies can build out their own AR experiences for both iOS and Android. But we also have a full development team in-house that build a lot of XR experiences for CPG and retail and across many industry verticals.
So each one of these people on the panel probably could have given a half-hour talk, and so we're trying to balance that with the fact that we are a panel. And so we put together some slides to go over. So I'm just going to ask the people to talk to. I'll pull it up. There we go. There's our panel. There's our group. And then I think I have to click again. So this is, should we just play it?
Yeah, hopefully the sound's not too loud.
Feel the bass.
Yeah, feel the bass. So Zappar, we're a mobile augmented reality company. We're really a software as a service platform first. Initially what we do is we've created our own full stack platform that for developers to build one single augmented reality experience for both iOS and Android. We're sort of like a WordPress for AR, and so we've got a lot of really great capabilities. Because it's our own full stack platform, we're able to sort of layer on new innovations as they come to market. So we now have AR Kit and AR Core, so real world tracking layered onto our content authoring platform. We've got facial detection, so the ability to actually create fully tracked face filters. And so we have a lot of really great, and we're rolling out mobile web AR, so we actually have it working in beta, removing the friction of the need for an app to download. So what we do is we work with brands in a lot of different agencies in a lot of different ways. Either you can license our platform and create your own augmented reality experiences. No real critical coding skills need to be applied. But we embed our technology into platforms for our partners. And so with 7-Eleven, what we did here, we're really proud of them as a partner, is they really took a giant leap of faith and jumped into the AR space early with the right approach, I think, which is an always-on strategy. So we're now celebrating 18 months with 7-Eleven, where we've embedded AR capabilities into My 7 Rewards, the mobile app. We've helped them to increase app downloads. We've seen over 10 million engagements within the first year. We're now on 18 months. We've built over 30 branded experiences for brands like PepsiCo, Red Bull, Nestle. Shout out to Rich Hess, who was just up here. And we're helping them to drive engagement inside their app. So we're seeing over 85 seconds of dwell time. And we're doing some things with augmented reality, and which I'm really proud of, is we're not just using AR as a sort of a surprise and delight anymore. We're able to kind of take AR and use it as a tool to help drive down the path to purchase. And so one of the benefits to embedding our technology into the 7 Rewards app, for example, is we're able to connect to their loyalty program so that, for example, we did something with Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. And so when you purchased a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup and scanned your 7 Rewards app at register, you were then rewarded with some AR content in the form of a game. And then at which point those points that you earned in the game weren't just meaningless points. They actually transitioned over into loyalty rewards points that you could sort of redeem for prizes and points and purchases in stores. So super proud of the partnership. We've seen an increase in footfall in store, and we've also seen significant increase in certain category sales. So it's been a tremendous partnership with us, and we're looking forward to continuing that on with some new activations coming soon.
Yeah, no, I love that it's like a world unto itself, the 7-Eleven, and a world into your app. Just, I mean, that many things. Let's see.
It's me.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Do
hi.
you want me to,
Are you going to play video?
Okay.
And this may or may not have sound. So there's a couple things. Our brands, which I think I've heard throughout many of these sessions, are always willing to test in there and then figure out how it scales. It's great to see some of the stuff on the 7-Eleven with the PepsiCo brands. What we're doing here, what you see here is a Bryce Harper. He's taking a pitch, and then you can throw it. This was very, very early on. We've seen Gatorade first figure out how do you do digital storytelling from the very beginning with VR. We're super proud of them as a brand. Our group, which is Zero Code, the gaming group, built this early on, and then we've gone on to other things. So for example, we did something recently with that really told the story about Gatorade's heritage, which is sports and science. And what it did is it really brought together Peyton Manning so that the consumer becomes part of the story. And when they become part of the story, they were throwing the football with real-time statistics on how the football arc was shown. And then it was showing what would happen when they got thirsty. So really it was bringing to bear some of that authenticity about what the brand is about and being true to its roots. So from this Bryce Harper piece all the way to where we are now, we've seen an evolution in what they're doing from storytelling and how they've been quickly able to think more and more about what they do with the brand and what they do with VR. So we're just super proud, and I think there's a lot of stuff within AR that our brands are doing within the PepsiCo family as well.
Yeah, I love that some of it was the voiceover was what he was thinking, because I do think that sometimes you get like, what makes sense, since you are in his head, it would make sense that you would have what he was thinking. It's really sort of fun.
And that one really played to sports fans too, because if you're watching a ball game and you can hear your neighbors yelling in New York, oh, what was he thinking? Well, here you had the case where, of course, you could actually figure out what was he thinking. And it's very funny to hear his voice like, oh, that one's low. And you know that frustration of the athlete inside their head? You're always wondering, well, this was quite clever to bring the person into the experience. What happened when we evolved that into Beat the Blitz with Peyton Manning is not only did Peyton Manning coach the person, but the consumer became part of the story as well, which was an awesome way to evolve that.
Well, there was this sort of, also you shared with me this other video where you brought some consumers into the piece and then they took off their headset and they met the actual player afterwards, which was great.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Great viral video for
surprise and delight.
Yeah. Okay, you are here.
Yeah, so I wanted to make a specific point. We all are here, that's right.
There we go.
No, it's okay. So we're based in Atlanta, Georgia, and we help clients, like I said, learn about these technologies and figure out how to use them and then scale them up. And we have clients like AT&T and Porsche and National Geographic and a lot of the same clients that the other experts here at the show have. We have a really practical and pragmatic approach. And the one point I wanted to make for you all today is all of us, as we bring this future to consumers, have to balance impact with accessibility. And there are so many exciting futuristic headsets for us to try. Not everybody's going to get to use those. So when you are trying to reach a consumer that may be waiting for the bus or like killing time in the airport, what can you deliver for them that is impactful but also accessible? This just has a bunch of different examples and stuff, from volumetric to 360 to AR. This is a fun little thing we did with New York City Subway. We can skip to the next slide.
Sure.
So is there a video after this one too?
Let me hit play.
Yeah, okay,
There we
cool.
go.
So as an example of that and being pragmatic and being accessible, you know, if you look at the world of spatial computing right now, it's kind of like a playground slide full of thumbtacks. It is not always a good time for your customer. They have to wait in line, they have to put a sweaty headset on their face, they have to maybe have access to fast internet to download your app if it's over 100 megabytes, and it's not going to be this way forever. And I love this quote by William Gibson, who's a famed sci-fi author. He says, "The future's already here, it's just not evenly distributed yet." This is an example where Apple and Google are letting us play with AR on the web, and you don't necessarily have to write a lot of JavaScript to do it. So AR Quick Look, or Quick Look AR, and for Google it's Scene View, allow you to put either a USDZ file or a GLTF file, which are industry standard formats now, just like PDF, into people's phones, and they can have an AR experience right there coming off the website. And for Coke, their brand new formulation of orange vanilla, which was their first new flavor for Coca-Cola in 10 years, they were excited to get that into people's hands so they could play with little virtual brand lands. I didn't bring this example today, but the NBA was really excited in their partnership around health and wellness with ShareCare to do it with the Minnesota Timberwolves and on to some of the other NBA mascots as well. So if you want to take a selfie with the mascot in AR, you can put your arm, have someone use the phone and take the picture right there. So this is one of many ways that you can, without building an app, without having people line up to put plastic on their faces, to deliver a bit of spatial computing in a way that happens very quickly and also is very fun.
Dan, you ready?
Sure.
Okay.
Speaking about putting plastic on your face,
There are no bad choices.
this is better with volume, actually.
Can we see if they can pull it up?
So this is part of the, this is now going the third year with Sleep Number, but this is a promotion that launched 2 years ago at the Super Bowl in Minneapolis. So we're known for doing kind of big bang events.
Not surprised.
So, you know, when we do something, we want to do something that's going to get a lot of buzz, a lot of people talking about it, because one of the things about VR is, you know, usually one person is doing it. So for the Super Bowl, what we did was we did a multiplayer experience. So that's good because it increases throughput. So instead of one headset at a time, we're doing 8 people at a time. So every 2 minutes, we're running 8 people through a quarterback challenge game. And since Sleep Number is actually the sleep partner, official sleep partner of the NFL, I don't know what that means, but it really
You own the sleep
is that like.
category.
Oh, there you go.
I mean,
So,
Tracy knows.
so Sleep Number is the official sleep partner of the NFL, and their beds and technology actually help you with your sleep performance, not necessarily your performance in bed. Oh. So what it does is it gives you better rest. Therefore, your athletic ability is higher. You're going to be better out in the field. And so for the Super Bowl, what we did was it was a quarterback challenge game. And for the first half of it, you are just like a traditional quarterback challenge game. I'm throwing it. However, I'm standing in the middle of the field. I'm at Viking Stadium, Mercedes Stadium in Atlanta, and I am throwing the ball, competing against other people. Perfect conditions. I've had great night's sleep. The second half of the game, you've had a terrible night's sleep all week long, so your performance has really been reduced. And so in VR, it's really kind of crazy. When you mess with things in VR, sometimes it makes people sick. So the challenge for that was, how do we create something that makes you feel sluggish, low energy, low performing in VR? So we did some really cool visual effects. The ball felt heavier, but the second half of the game you were trying to play, it was much more difficult. So everybody was taking off the headset going, oh my God, it was so hard. So they definitely got the benefit of the product in that kind of demonstration. So out of these kind of activations that we do, when we do on-site activations, we're always trying to find the hook. What are people going to share? What are people going to talk about? And for this thing, we had an 8-foot tall by 20-foot wide monitor. And so during the experience, while all 8 people are playing, we had an artificial intelligence camera system that was viewing all of the action. So traditionally, people pipe in the video from the headset, and all you do is get this, right? So this looked like an edited sports experience. So you looked like you're watching the game. It was panning around. It was focusing in on players that were scoring high. So the visual was really awesome to watch. So you're watching people in headsets, and you're watching the game go on. And then when it was over, everybody who had gone through the experience was actually registering in line. So we had brand ambassadors taking everybody's information, getting them to opt into the Sleep Numbers mailing list for customer acquisition. And then, so at the end of the game, since we knew what headset they were in, what position they were in, they had a leaderboard system. And at the leaderboard system, it would display at the end of the game, and everybody wanted to get their photo taken from it. And I don't know if you've got a slide of some of the KPIs from this.
There you go.
This is pretty cool. So from a 5-day event, we generated over 500 million media impressions, and 20 million social impressions, and with only 5,500 people going through the experience. So when you think about, we could talk about AR. AR definitely has much more of a larger reach, and sometimes AR is restricted just to the people who are in the headsets, but that's okay. We can still tell a great story by using traditional media or using electronic media or earned media through it. And so that's one thing that we always think about, like how do we explode this from one moment to across the globe?
Right. No, this is, I would say, like 7-Eleven, and then the Sleep Number activations were like probably my number 1 and number 2. I don't know who would be number 1 or number 2. Let's say tie things that happened in the past year when it comes to VR and AR. And so when I was thinking about the panel, I was like, if I can only get Zappar and Groove Jones on the panel, that'd be awesome.
2.
And then I got them both. And then Tracy, now has been on 3 panels of mine, and John's one of my favorite people. So I was like, this panel's awesome. I'm going to call it Best in Class. So that's okay, a little bit of an aside, selfishness. Okay, so we have a little under 30 minutes, and what I wanted to do for that is, let me go, nope, we're not there yet. We'll start back over again. Is to go through a little bit from, if you're a marketer, a creative team, you go through a few different stages in this. You go from the pitch when you're dealing with your customers or your agency. You then go through the creative process, and then you do sort of a post-analysis. And so I wanted to structure the rest of this panel a little bit like that. So let's start with the pitch. So if companies or clients come to you, what do they generally want? Is it the same as another campaign? Is it a game or a face filter? How do you push those boundaries, and how do you get it to be best in class? And I open that up for any of you to be able to answer.
Can I answer real quick?
Yeah.
So Sleep Number, so we worked directly with Sleep Number on this one. They reached out to us, and they already had an idea. And when they told us their idea, we were like, oh my God, that's a terrible idea. So we just had to use black magic and witchcraft. And we really had to tell them, look, a lot of brands they think they understand the technology, but sometimes we've got to realign everything. And when we pitch creative ideas, sometimes this is how the promotion will benefit, and this is really how we can get your message across using the technology in a correct way.
Right. Well, that's Tracy. You face that kind of situation a lot, no?
Yeah, a lot of times the wish list is we want to go to the moon, for example, and we then have to meet with our partners, which we usually ring any number of folks who've come in to see us, or we said, oh, we saw this startup once that does this, and we have to do a reality check. So we may envision it being one thing, and then usually we'll sketch it out and say, I think this is what we want, and it's like an artist's canvas. So what happens is we go to someone like you, or we go out and say, here's kind of sort of what we want, and here's some pictures that we've been inspired by. And then we usually get a reality check, like, you're crazy, this can't be done. Or some people will say, that's interesting, it's never been done. What if we tried it this way? Our job is to go back to the PepsiCos of the world, or whomever it is, and say, here's a couple options, here's a stretch goal. If you want just press for doing a stretch goal, here's a way to do it. If you're looking for scale, sometimes these things may be diametrically opposed. So if you want something really cool with tech that's never been done before, I might not be able to get you scale. So you have to meet in the middle of what you want. I find that question happening all the time. I've heard it in a couple panels. Either you go for broke, trying new tech, or you scale it and you use existing platforms.
Mm-hmm. I think to dovetail on that, I completely agree with Tracy. I often say it's kind of like clients come to us and they have these ideas and their head is all the way at planet Mars, and we have to reel them back in. And I think what it really boils down to is, what are your objectives and goals? Is it to drive footfall? Is it to drive down the path to purchase? Is it to drive up additional earned media? It could be all of the above. I think for us, again, as a software company first, we're more than happy to provide the right tools to make that process easy for your developers or creative teams. But we also work with our partners and can sort of strategize these things together. I think what's made the partnership with 7-Eleven so successful is that when we sat down with them, they said, listen, we know our business. You guys know the AR space and are the experts there. How do we come together and align strategically in tandem and put sort of the right framework together? And that's worked well for us. I've also sort of been put into a position where there's a creative agency that has this incredible creative idea, and we've got to stick to that sort of that framework. And the UX just may not make sense in store for that particular brand or retailer. So I think really laying out the sort of the KPIs and the objectives, and how do we put the right pieces in place. There's also there's been brands where we've been able to go back and say a mobile game is probably going to cost $100,000, and you have a sweepstakes that's baked into this AR execution. That's based on insights. Just to quote Alan, and I was glad to hear him in the past sort of panel discussion. Every brand needs to have an AR strategy now. I mean, we're moving so quickly, and I think what's really important is that you need to be testing and learning and understanding, gathering as many insights as you can. We've worked with brands where things have worked tremendously successful, and then some things have flopped, but we've been able to sort of to balance all of that and figure out what's the best use of your spend, and how are we actually gonna sort of touch your consumer base in the most meaningful way with this immersive content.
And if I could just wrap that up, our projects are not always tied to campaign, and our background is in experience marketing, and so while buyers or clients may have a little bit of whiplash from all the terminology or jargon changes over the last even year, with AR and VR moving into XR, moving into now spatial computing, it's probably not completely settled out yet. We try to put some of that aside, the device aside, and we say, well, how do you want to feel? Where are you? Are you going to be at retail? Are you going to be at a trade show? Are you going to be at a mobile tour? Let's get the client out of having to articulate what he or she wants and try to get them to say, okay, well, I want to see something that is interesting to me. Well, what does that mean? Oh, well, I'm going to be at this kind of place, and I'm going to have this kind of visual clutter, and I need to break through that. Well, what happens when you're away from 100 feet and you're at 10 feet? What do you want to see then? Oh, well, I want to start learning about this solution. Well, tell us about your solution. The sooner we can get them engaged in a conversation, it stops being a brief assignment, and it becomes more of an experiential, this is not a dodge, this is really what we do, try to get to a paper prototype, get to a pipe cleaner prototype, get to a pantomime prototype. And the sooner you do that, the sooner you get to the real customer feelings that people want to have. And then you can step back and say, oh, well, we can't do this device because we don't have Wi-Fi, or we can't do that device because the lines are going to be too long. Sometimes lines are great, though. We have done plenty of
Lines are
VR.
great.
We have done plenty of VR, and it is a tremendously impactful way to do it, but just not always practical. So anyway, we try to get the clients out of the jargon, get them into the feelings, because ultimately, whether you're attached to campaign or not, if you don't make somebody feel something with this, then they're not going to have good things to say about it.
I think that that's what, so Kathy and Hackle and I wrote a book called Marketing New Realities, and one section in there we're talking about you have to put, you know, when you do the creative brief, you're going to have to put like feeling. And I think that if you're going to do like a brief for a TV spot, or you're going to do for a website, you might not put that as like, how are you going to feel? But especially with VR, you know, that's such an essential part of it. And you know, and then you start thinking about things spatially, which you wouldn't necessarily do if you're just sort of doing a sort of traditional creative, you know, pitch or creative development.
Could I just cut in for just one second?
Go ahead.
I think the sleep number bed example is fantastic, because that is, you all learned a ton about that, I'm sure, but just as an average consumer, I don't ever think about sleep. I don't ever think about my bed. I just think about, gosh, I'm tired. And so reminding people that this is a choice that they're making in their lives, that they could improve that, and using VR to simulate that, I think that's brilliant. I do too. So
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, and if you look, and if you read the brief, some of the asks are so crazy, and so, but you definitely have to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And as soon as you have conversations, we can be subject matter experts as far as the technology goes, but honestly, technology is like last sometimes. Sometimes we're just trying to find out truly, what are they trying to feel? What are we trying to do? And then let's talk about the technology.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas often technology is always pushed up front, and we're the tech people a lot of times.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think finding a way to use this technology to bring value and utility to the end consumer, that should be really, you know, first thought. And then how do we bring that into the flow? I think oftentimes I see partners come to us that just have the idea, and it's like, well, okay, well, as an end user, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the user. Am I going to really do that? Am I going to feel something? Is it going to drive me to some outcome? And so I think, you know, just based on some of the work that John and Dan have done has been really tremendous and sort of thoughtful in that way.
I mean, in some ways, I feel like utility might be the wrong word, and this might be the brand marketer in me, because utility to me is like the measuring app that everybody used versus it is about the user experience. Like, what does the user want to do? Maybe they don't know yet that they want to do it, but what really do they want to do, as opposed to what can the technology do? And if you sort of start there, if you start as user focused, then I think you're sort of going in the right direction. You started hinting a little bit about the creative process. So our step 2 in our panel discussion is about creative. So you get your brief. You want to do something like before, Dan, but it needs to be bigger and better and more press, and it's the Super Bowl. Make it work, and then you go, okay. Now, give us a little insight into that, and then I will ask the creative question for all of you as well.
You know, sometimes the creative process is very odd sometimes, because everybody wants never been done before. And it's very hard to kind of explain something. It's kind of like trying to explain color TV to somebody who's only seen black and white TV. They get it, it makes sense, but it really doesn't make sense. You don't see it until just like the first time I put VR on, it was like, oh wow, now I see.
Now I get it.
So, you know, everybody sees something like, I want that. Like if I hear 19 wines again.
19 crimes. Well, one of
19
my
crimes?
No, one of my partners worked on that, and she's like, I'm like, we can make it a case study. And she's like, no, we can't, because we've moved beyond.
Yeah, and so like everybody kind of focuses on like that kind of the creative discussion. We want something like that.
Yep.
Right.
And so it's part of the consulting, it's part of the conversation, but sometimes you have to demonstrate the technology to somebody so they understand how it works, because all they've seen is a video of it maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I run a Facebook group called VR, AR, MR, Marketing Branding, and because I'm just really posting everything I see that's related to it, you can start to see trends of like, oh, this company did this, and then you see like like a few months later, like 3 other companies are doing something that's almost the same. And it might be because it's the technology is advanced to allow to do it, but sometimes I think it's also probably a brand goes, ooh, like that, like that.
Right.
So Keith, if you talk a little bit about how 7-Eleven even started from a creative standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, we were really fortunate. We met 7-Eleven at NRF, National Retail Federation show in New York a couple of years ago, and I guess they had just sort of transitioned some their digital teams, and they had a new chief technology officer, and we just were really in the right place at the right time, and we found a true evangelist of the technology, where he understood that this is an always-on medium. Just to take a step back from 7-Eleven, and I was with a company called Blipper, and I was one of the founding U.S. members and helped build the company. And one of my favorite sort of AR experiences to this day, and every time I walk past a ketchup bottle, is a Heinz ketchup bottle. And when I talk about utility, when you scanned that Heinz ketchup bottle, it turned into a recipe flip book right off of the label, and you could flip through all the various recipes. To this day, I can't walk past a ketchup bottle without wanting to scan it or show somebody. And that was the power of always on. And I know I'm speaking from the stage, and I'm the AR nerd. But I think to go back to 7-Eleven, we found a partner that was willing to really blaze trails and look at this as an always-on strategy. And so our first execution with them was with Fox and Deadpool. We saw over 1 million engagements in the first week of the activation. And again, we're at this point, we're over 10 million engagements within the 7 Rewards apps. So they own all their own data. We're helping them to build user acquisition. We're connecting to all their loyalty rewards programs. So it's been a tremendous opportunity, and we're continuing to move forward with some really cool stuff.
I love it also because it's one of I forget which panel talked about it. But I've thought about it as well, is that AR offers this sort of new media opportunity, and you've now sort of created a destination that it's like a media destination. It's a consumer destination, but it's also like, oh, what other partners can we bring in to do this, to have some other kind of experience where it's sort of a win for everybody. Any other comments on the creative process?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I think you guys have all said something that really strikes me. Our team has to always come up with ideas, or what happens is some tech folks will bring us an idea and say, I always say, what's your favorite thing that you would love to build? I always ask everyone that question, because somewhere in there's a sliver of, oh, that's cool, let's push that out and see if someone will do it. So it often strikes me that it's it's similar to a relationship between architects and engineers. IMPay may have come in and sketched a triangle and said, I want to build this. And the engineer might say, you might not be able to do that, what about this? Yes. So it's kind of that middle path back and forth, and that dance where we get to a really good solution that will meet everybody's needs. But then I think we always go back to the question is, what is the experience you want to give the consumer? Because in our world, we want to give that consumer the best experience, but we also want our brands to think about how are you going to better engage that consumer? What are you going to do? What are you trying to achieve? And is it to get them in the aisle, or is it just to make them like your brand more? So I think sometimes we ask a lot of questions, and then we always go back to the basics, like let's go back to what was the first question on the brief.
Yep.
What do you want them to feel? So then sometimes we'll get all caught up in the messy process, and then we bring it back up to
across industries, we have heard a lot of specific urgency, like I need to do something innovative. I need to do, is it AI, is it machine learning, is it augmented reality? Clients often don't give themselves permission to do the job they were hired to do. They're just trying to do something shiny. And we have to tell them that it's okay, that we'll get to that. But if they can remember that people buy things because they want to do things, and they would do things because they want to be things, if you can connect with that, then you can think about what do I want to immerse them in? What experience do I want to give them? So creatively, to your point, Tracy, you have to be that matchmaker, and you have to say, I have a little soil over here, and I have a little seed over there, and I have some water here, and wait for your moment to bring them together. we have so many options, and we're probably going to have more technology options as time goes on before it gets simpler. And it's just curating that. I think that's the real work.
Right.
The technology will always be there. The messages will always be there, but putting them together.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, when I started the company, I was like, there's these brands that want to do innovative things, and there's technologists that want to do innovation, and why can't they talk to each other all the time and figure out? I was like, I can talk to both of them. Perfect. Like, time to start a company. So I think that, but I think that it will, that kind of discussion will always happen. I think what's been interesting for me is seeing how even a year ago, people would be like, AR is over here, VR is over here, and people are like, it's a spectrum. And then now it's IoT and AI and machine, they're all sort of together. Mm-hmm. And then as long as you're focusing on, and I'll say this again, as long as you're focusing on the consumer and the sort of experience that you want them to have, then you can sort of pick and choose what applies the best. So I want to touch on engagement, because that tends to be one of those terms that marketers love to use, and also one that I think is sort of a superpower potentially of what VR and AR do. Yet, I mean, I wrote like a post about this of like, nobody can really define it, but I know, John, I know we've had conversations about engagement and how it applies, and I'm hoping you can talk a little bit about how you weave it in, how you quantify it, where you start with that. And we're getting, I guess, we're moving now from the creative process to a little bit of leaning into the post-creative sort of more analysis
Sure.
end of things.
I'll be brief because I'm sure we want to have time for questions. And I'm happy to talk to anybody about this after the panel. But we really try to, it's so easy for people to take off the hardware and be stargazing afterwards, and maybe that was their first or second VR experience, or maybe it was their second time doing something cool with AR because they didn't know how to get the app or something. And it's easy for them to lose sight of the message. So we try to come back to the message and say, what is the first thing we want them to feel? What is the second thing we want them to feel? What is the durable memory that experience we want them to have as they come away? What do we want them to share, to Dan's point earlier about like creating shareable experiences in this thing that nobody else can see because it's occluded right by the magical blindfold. And each one of those might have different metrics associated with it, whether it's time on task, whether it's eye tracking, passive versus active measures, that kind of thing. So it's still a very much an evolving conversation, but all the technologies are there. So I think you need to have a coherent strategy for where you want to end up, so that you can layer in the steps to get there and then measure those appropriately and try to work on those. If you're lucky enough in marketing, and it doesn't always work out this way, to have something that you can iterate on, as opposed to it just being a flash in the pan like we're activating in an event or whatever it is, then you'll get the chance to refine it. People are just going gobsmacked about how great the Quest is. The visuals aren't as good as the Rift S. The form factor is not as nice as some of the other things. Every other headset has pieces that are better than the Quest, I'm sorry. But what's great about it is that the user experience is the best that VR has ever had. This premium box, and you take it apart, and 5 minutes later you're in it. And you drew out your Guardian system, and if somebody walks into it, the camera comes on. It is the best, bar none, VR experience you're going to have. So for all of the flash and technology, user experience is what really matters. And I think that's the most important thing to focus on.
So I also want to touch on, because we are best in class, when you go the best in class panel, when you look at sort of the experience you do, I mean, you guys sort of, I think you collectively have done, I don't even know, hundreds potentially. How do you go, you know what, that is award worthy, that we need to submit, that's going to win this, that, the other thing. Is there anything that stands out? Because I've had the opportunity, sort of lucky opportunity to judge in a couple different things, mm-hmm. and sometimes I go, did they really think, okay? And then other people are like, that was amazing. And like, how do you end up sort of gauging?
So if you have time, you can test. So is Rich from Nestle out there?
I know, I think
Okay.
he got bombarded
Okay.
after.
So we're the guys who did the Kit Kat experience that he talked about
Amazing.
at the last panel. I was like, wow, great for saying that. We did it.
I tweeted about it too. So.
You did? Awesome. Well, but so when we originally built it, we were using, so we're going down technology, we were using the Rift, which does room scale. However, the experience was primarily you standing and then shooting flavors at Kit Kat bars and all that. And then, which was fun, but it wasn't until we had some time to where we could do some testing, and then we were like, well, let's make people move around. And so we put the popcorn flavor over here and the cherry flavor over here. And so you'd have to get up and put your gun in that, and then you'd shoot it. Then you go, oh, I'm gonna go over here. And so we got people to explore VR, which at the time when we did it, like nobody was doing that then. But when we had time to test and evaluate and judge like our own work, and then seeing other people, and once people started smiling and giggling, you're like, we're on to something. So I think time really is a thing that you can gauge and go, we got something. We're on the right path.
What about you?
In terms of award winning?
Yeah.
I mean, shameless plug, we're Zappar,
Well,
we're shortlisted for a few awards. One is for 7-Eleven for Best AR Campaign for the year. Another is with Hasbro partnership. I think for us specifically, I think whenever we're able to sort of meet our customers' needs and I mean, we're all about democratizing augmented reality. So whether it's our team in house that's creating execution, or we're providing sort of the best tools to our agency partners so that we can continue to build immersive experiences that will scale. I think one of the important things for us is scalability, right? And so we're here to announce our web AR solutions for our platform. What we want to be very careful of in anything that we do is that it's scalable. And I think during the creative process, we just want to make sure that that these AR executions will work when deployed for a 7-Eleven or a Walmart across all their customer base. So in terms of award-winning, as long as the campaigns work, they scale, they're providing value to our customers and to the end user. I think that's and in terms of the creative, I take my hat off to these guys because they're really amazing at what they do.
Great. We have a few minutes for questions if there's any from the audience. I have more if you don't. So go ahead.
When you look at Augmented, how are you're playing the different demographics, right? So you're in the innovative side. You've got high-end clients. You've got millennial clients. You've got all these technologies. First of all, the first question is, what have you seen new that you really are tapped into? Because it takes a while for you to actually embrace. What are you immersed in now? Which technology are you trying to implement in brands? And then second is, if there's a way to explain how you look at different technologies for the different groups and audiences.
It's a great question. So the first thing that I obviously at the agency have been the AR advocate. I always try to find someone who will be both at the client side but also within the strategy teams, that advocate. Coming to conferences like this and talking to all of you guys helps us learn more as an organization so that we can help make those decisions faster. That's my ultimate goal when I go back. So I go back and do education. We go back and we write long form and short form things. So every team has access to the same information so they can help make the decisions. I have a red velvet, my red velvet rope to the money for the clients is the strategy teams. So I need to get behind that red velvet rope with them. So my job is really just to share as much as possible with information, and when new tech and startups come to us, I make sure that everybody knows about it. We distribute it globally on a monthly basis through a newsletter as well as nationally. So if you come and see us, we say we only have X amount of time. We try to distribute that. The second thing, so it is a great question because I've struggled with how do I make sure that what we know as a really tiny team, everyone can become advocates. That's first and foremost a goal of my team and the agency. The second thing is I have also been a big advocate, as many other people are, is we don't look at people in these cohorts of segments. I wanted to ask the Nestle guy, how do you know, in Taiwan, whether they're going to uptake on AR versus North America? What happens in those regional markets? We just try to create really great products that we think are going to work across the cohorts. I don't like the age definitions because I'm always pleasantly surprised that if you do something at PGA Golf, oddly enough, those people really want history, so they're playing this. I heard the folks earlier talking about the in-between time at games in PGA Golf, how everybody across the board in the stadiums are playing bingo and different games. I think that's universal. So I think that more and more what we're seeing with AR is that it's this kind of universal horizontal cut versus a vertical cut. That's my hope, because it scales, it helps our clients, and it helps the industry. So I don't know, did that answer your question? Okay.
Any other, I think we have time for probably one more question. Go ahead.
Is it becoming really strategic, XR? So lot of question on ROI, so the return on investment. Is the investment really recurrent, or is just once in time just to do a gadget or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They
So
are
if I
one
understand
and
your,
done kind of thing.
I think you had mentioned this earlier.
I would love to take the
Yeah.
first answer for this. So this is perhaps the most strategic digital thing that anybody in this room could be thinking about. Right now we're focused on devices and location-based entertainment and an app on a phone. But the geography that is being laid over top of this world is a digital twin of our physical world. And we're visual creatures navigating that physical world. So the days of looking at glowing rectangles are quickly coming to a close, I should say. If you talk to Roni Abovitz from Magic Leap, he doesn't really talk about the hardware. He wants to tell you about the magic first. He wants to tell you about this invisible layer of content. So if you, whether you're an insurance company or you sell shoes or widgets that go into robots, be thinking about how do you make yourself ready for a 3D digital, always on, everywhere kind of world. Because we're not going to be appointment viewing on our phones. We're going to be encountering it contextually like we do everything else. So I would say, just for my part of the answer, it's very strategic, and think about 3D and digital.
Take a step and watch people engaging with the scavenger hunt out there, and there's some great observation that you'll find that some people are instantly getting it, some people don't understand what's going on, so there's always got to be this onboarding process to this whole digital second world. It's really, I don't think it's going to be as frictionless as everybody says it is. I think there is still a communication layer to it, to this journey, and I don't think people are really getting that yet. So that's my kind of.
Right, absolutely.
We call
Pushing
them.
the time, Keith.
You wanna
do it.
You have to wrap it up quick.
We call them the 3 C's to success at Zappar. First is call to action. We don't live in a world where everyone's holding their phone up to everything that exists, and so if you're adding a new layer of digital content to what I like to call IoT and the AR spaces, the Internet on things. If you're adding a new layer of digital content, we need to make sure that that end consumer is aware of it. Content, we want to make sure that we're using this technology to the best of our abilities. Again, I think we touched on all that. And then context.
Yeah, we got to wrap it up. Thank you so much to our panel. I appreciate it.
Thank you.